So today we're going to take a little trip to Michael's, and we're not just doing it for a shopping trip. We're doing it as a little peek into what is coming up in home decor. So the first thing you're going to notice is there are a lot of greens. There are all kinds of garlands and bushes and trees and grass-like things and whatever you could want in any kind of faux greenery, they have right now at Michael's. It's almost like someone went out and looked on the internet and looked at every kind of green shrubbery imaginable and manufactured it. And Michael's has everything. They're in the form of wreaths or mats, or you can see some squares. And so many of them are plastic, so that if you wanted to put them outside, like Cousin Mel did, you can do that, and there will be absolutely no problem with it holding up. It was kind of amazing to me to see so much green, but it shouldn't be, because for the last little while, the trends have been talking about more green in our design. And if you think about it, this year has felt so hopeless to everybody. So it seems like it's been really nice to have some form of life, even if that life isn't real. I have to say, they make it look very real. But I think it's important for us to look at Michael's because it tells us really what people are looking for, what people are buying, and how they want to decorate. And even though we decorate with our own design, we're not really swayed, it's always nice to see the trends because we can incorporate whatever they have going on into our home decor. It's really frustrating when you picture something in your head and then you don't know where to get it. Well, let me tell you, if you pictured some kind of faux flower in your head, this is a pretty good place to get it. Now, I'll tell you what they don't carry at Michael's. They don't carry the Real Touch tulips, the Real Touch flowers. They don't traditionally carry things that would work in a primitive setting. However, there are some flowers in this huge menagerie of millions of floral stems that you should be able to find something that would work in your country primitive decor. Also, as we're going into the whole cottagecore era, of course, we're going to want to see a few more plants. I always prefer real plants, but again, in the spring, that's not normal. It's not that feasible to find them depending on where you live. Now, this was the reason I went to Michael's in the first place. I went there because I wanted some moss. What I found was that while they had a pretty good variety of moss, they had been pretty picked through, and the prices were a whole lot more than I was accustomed to paying at either Walmart or, of course, the Dollar Tree. They did have some interesting moss that you could just peel the back layer off and stick to something. And then they had the traditional kind of clumpy moss that you could use on top of your little art projects. So you see, we're just seeing more and more flowers. They had them all organized by blues and purples and golds and reds and pinks and yellows and just ever so many flowers. It kind of reminded me of in the 80s, or maybe it was the 70s, when faux flowers were all the rage and everybody was making these really pretty baskets full of flowers and putting them in the house. And then quite a few years later, we threw them out because they were full of dust. They also had the faux pussy willows. I've got to say, they look pretty real. I always prefer the real ones, but if you're in a pinch, those faux ones don't look too bad. So looking around, you can see they of course had the yellows, and how I usually use the flowers at least is the bright yellows start in the early spring. Of course, that's just how nature does it, right? With the forsythias and the daffodils. And then the other colors start coming out, like the lilacs, and so you start getting into the blues, the hyacinths. Right now in my yard, I'm seeing a whole lot more blue coming out. And then, of course, in the fall, you're going to go more toward the reds, and you're going to start with the russets and the rusts. Here are those big rubber tree plants and other plants. This is what I really want you to see. This is their farmhouse section. What do you guys see in their farmhouse section? Color. There is a lot of color. People are starting to move away from their all white on white on white, and they're adding strong, bold, striking color to the mix. Because let's face it, color makes us happy. And look what else they're adding. Oh my goodness, if it isn't cottagecore. It is the perfect balance of old flowers, granny kind of looks, cottagecore, and I think we're going to be seeing a whole lot more of this as time goes on, as the trend starts to develop, because cottagecore mixes really well with the white on white farmhouse that everyone has been doing. And for us that love primitive, of course, there are always lanterns. And these lanterns don't seem to ever go out of style. They consistently show many lanterns and a lot of primitive looking ones. This was a wreath display, which was very much picked through. But you guys saw how I picked flowers out of these piles and I made my own wreath. And that really worked well for me. So this, I guess, you know, if you like faux flowers, head over to Michael's. And if you want to make them look more primitive, find something that looks a little more rustic and then add that wax to it like I do, the antiquing wax, and you can take it down a notch from the bright fake look of it all. And of course they had pots and they had everything else that would go with your decorating ideas. Now this was also interesting because they started to show a lot of more their new DIY projects. They're kind of terrarium looking, they're a little succulent looking to go with the farmhouse, and they have all of everything that you would need there, the different kind of mosses, the different kind of succulents, they had some faux crystal rocks and stuff that you could put in your garden, and it was all about putting together this kind of terrarium succulent look. I looked at these for a minute and I thought, those would be kind of interesting summer placemats, but then I took a look at the price and realized that I was not going to pay $20 for a placemat. So they went back, but I did think that they would look kind of interesting in a spring place setting. And again, more greens. More pots, more greens. They seem to have an overwhelming amount. Here are patio lights. I'm going to leave a link for that in my Amazon store because I've got some great patio lights I use and they're very sturdy. Here is more farmhouse, and again, it's a cottagecore kind of look. It's just, you know, little flowers, 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 flowers. We're starting to see a more feminine look coming into our home trends. But we're still seeing some of the black and white signs, some of the baskets. This is something that Michael's does pretty much every year too, is they have a very strong section of blue and sand colors. So to me, this is the beach look. This would be something that you'd pull out in the summer. I don't use the beach look here at the homestead because it just doesn't fit, you know? But in other places that I've lived, I've always gone with the beach look because it's cool and calming and beautiful. I mean, who doesn't love the sun and the sea and the sky and the sand? It just reeks of relaxation. But again, you're gonna still see a lot of the traditional farmware kinds of things, but it's taken a step up, and look what I found. That, you know, I've always wanted one of those cages. They've been more than I wanted to spend, but this was $24.99 minus 40%, and it looks so good on my table. I love the baskets. The pillows were cute. This was cute. I like that. Easy DIY if you want to make it, and I love these. Again, those striking, bold colors. And here's a picture of the wreaths that I ended up doing a DIY. See this video if you'd like to do a DIY. And I hope you enjoyed it.